Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today is a 61 Benz episode, but it's a side episode. This is specifically on the instrument cluster on the W111 fintail, or they were in other ones. They look like this, the back of it. You know, it's the vertical unit. I'm starting this backwards because this is the remnants of some spare parts. I did not document the procedure that I did because it was super frustrating. I couldn't find absolutely no internal pictures to these things at all on the internet. I asked, nobody had pictures. Nobody's taken one apart that they're willing to admit to. Anyway, so I wanted to post some pictures on it, so in case somebody really needs to get into one of these, you kind of get what you're getting into. It's like opening up a watch. There are some things you got to be careful of. The main thing you got to be careful of is the rotating speedometer drum. So it looks like this. This is that piece that rotates and tells you how fast you're going through that vertical window. These comes in, it's got a top bracket, and the top bracket is on there's a spring. I will show you here. There's like a clock spring in there, and if this thing falls out, the clock spring's actually attached on both ends. You can't take it apart. It's crimped. You don't want to spin it or underspin it. There's a stop right there. There's a little tab right there that allows the drum not to rotate all the way around. There's a little pin and a little tiny hub right there. I know the GoPro doesn't focus well, but basically that fits on that. And if you face this flat part of the bracket towards you, this needs to go up towards the face of the panel. The right position of the drum is, it's supposed to hit the stop to show 0 in the window. So you hear this little stop. You can't rotate it past that, and then you can rotate it all the way around until you hit the dead stop at the maximum rating of the speedometer, and then it'll return. The spring will return it back like that. That's the correct operation of it. Now, the bottom of the drum is on also a little pin. I'm going to show you that. You can see that little pin right there. And that sits on the odometer drive unit, which is this piece right here. This is where your speedometer cable plugs into. And this wheel, this is the magnet wheel. And over here is this little white plastic thing. That's where that pin goes into. And basically it rides like this on it. So if I were to, it's really, you know when you got it on there when it turns freely. And it's kind of, you can't see in there, so if it's on there, make sure not to push down on the drum. Let just kind of the gravity feed it. See how it's moving? So now it's on the little spindles, and that's how it should move when it's all assembled. So keep that in mind. These are all spare parts, so I'm not too concerned about like damaging it. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm going to put this one together so I don't lose all of the parts. Just remember that the top part, the bracket, shouldn't come too far away from the drum because there is that spring. If you pull it out too far, you're going to stretch that little spring, which I did. I accidentally dropped the drum, and this was in my hand. It stretched it, but the spring doesn't actually bend in the middle. It just bends like right here it bends right here at the where it's crimped, and it kind of goes at an angle. It kind of goes like that. So all you have to do is just bend it back right here. And the best way to know that you've done it correctly is if you rotate it, you should not hear that spring scraping up against anything. If it's super quiet and you get like free, it like springs back on its own and hits the stop, then you know it's good. I'm holding it with my finger so it doesn't have good free spinning, but that's how you know the spring is good and not damaged. So if you do accidentally pull it out, that's where you would bend it back. So I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna get the housing. This is the cast aluminum piece that everything goes into. I built one good one. The good unit, somebody cut the connector off, so I desoldered the connector off of this. I built one good unit. But anyway, so looking at the top of this, I'm also be careful when you flip it back and forth because all these little pieces fall out. And I'm gonna show you specifically what comes out of it. It's those little color lenses for the blinkers, the generator light, the start valve, and the high beams. And there is a red lens right here. There is a mesh that goes over it, another mesh. There's 3 meshes, and I'm missing a lens because I've turned it over too many times. Actually, I found the green lens. There's what's left of it. It's brittle and it fell apart. So this instrument panel came out of the car, which the car was in the junkyard. It was out in the weeds for 20 years. Became really brittle. So as you can see, that's what's left of the lens. It's junk. So got to be careful with it. I lost the green lens. It's all right. This is a spare unit. But anyway, so now looking at it, you have, that's the generator light, start valve, high beam. And the way it goes in is you have the color piece goes in first, just like that. And then the mesh piece goes over it. It kind of gives you that distorted look. Same thing, that's the high beam. That's the blue one. And that would be the green one that I broke. But you can always cut up a candy wrapper or something, or some other green lens, just like that. Then you put the blinker one in. Same thing, it goes up here. Those are the 2 blinkers. You see this thing with the grooves in it? That's where the bracket goes in. The bottom of this bracket is for the adjustment of the friction of the drum. That's where the spring's at. So this is the most fragile part, is the drum with its bracket. Now, leaving this right side up, over here you would have the temperature gauge, which is mechanical, and the oil pressure gauge, which is mechanical. Those are removed at the moment. Temperature gauge is in the car. The mechanical oil pressure gauge is right here. It looks like that. It's fragile too, so don't drop it. Then the bottom piece is your odometer stuff. So this is the odometer plate at the bottom. Note there's a hole where the drive unit fits into. Now something to note is the 2 units that I pieced together, these were different diameter. So the one that came with my car, it was a smaller diameter. So when I try to swap the entire odometer assembly, my cable would not screw onto that. So I had to swap this out. And this fits into the base just like that. And then it holds together with this nut. You basically just screw the nut on it and it holds the drive unit. I'm not gonna put it back together yet because there's another piece that needs to go in there. The piece that goes in there, which was defective on my original one, is this worm gear. It's a gear, as you see here. It's got a gear that's driven by a worm gear, and then it's got a worm gear that drives the actual odometer, and this piece screws on right here. So this gear is what drives your counter, right? It spins and you count and you see it counting, right? Just like that. So this worm gear, but this one, somebody tampered with it. So if you see it rotating, you'll actually see how it wobbles. Somebody bent it out of the way, and that way it would only clock 50% of the time. I think that was what they were trying to do, but ultimately the odometer didn't work. I don't know how this would get bent just by running, even if one of the gears jammed up. I'm just to understand how something this thick, right, would get bent in there. So my guess is somebody messed with it on purpose. So I took this piece out of the other cluster, which is in the car. It was a better cluster. It was beautiful looking, but unfortunately, you know, the cable was cut and the speedometer cable didn't fit. Another thing to look for is my car had a speedometer that went up to 120 miles per hour. This one, the spare unit, had a plate in there that went up to 100 miles an hour, which I like better because these things ain't ever gonna hit 100. And if they do, it's unsafe. Let's put it that way. So one way to note is at the bottom of your drum. Now this one is scrubbed out, but on the black portion of this, way at the bottom, there are tiny numbers, and it actually says the maximum speed. This one says 120, and the one that I installed says 100. And I think what that actually defines is the tension of that spring, maybe, or how these things are lined up. And obviously this window goes over that, and then as you rotate, it will give you your speed. So the number down here, whatever speed it is, has to match your faceplate, the maximum number. This one's 120, this one's 120. So they go together. So now I am going to assemble this piece, because this, I believe, needs to go in first when you assemble it. That way you can set the drum in there correctly. This part does not actually fit the drive unit because this little hole is too small or this collar's too big. It's designed for they're from a different one. I made it work on mine, and it road tested fine. I measured it with a GPS speedometer. It works great. Everything works fine. Like I said, these are just spare parts. I started to take this apart because my odometer didn't work. I wanted my odometer to actually work, be accurate. I just had the car verified by DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. I had the VIN verified, mileage verified, and I needed to match the paperwork, so I needed to fix this. I wanted the actual odometer to roll and count. So here you see it's put together. It's got the nut on it. This is the drive unit that the cable drives. It drives this little worm gear right here, and that worm gear, this now fits over that, just like that. Now I can't completely screw it on, but I will put a screw in it just so I don't lose the part. So I'm just gonna put this little screw to hold it right there. Gotta stand it up. Anyway, it screws in right there. I'm not gonna tighten it because this doesn't fit, but it's gonna stay with the odometer. At least it's not lost. Also, when you set the tension on these, you want to make sure it rolls freely. So if this is a height adjustment, so this little shaft moves up and down like that. You got to make sure you got the right amount of clearance. It's just to where this wheel is free. See how it's binding right now? If I spin it the other way, it's binding right now, but if I loosen this and bring it like way up away from it, which I can't because it's not fitting, but if you see it here, see how that just rolls? It's supposed to roll like that. If it's sticky, if I put pressure on it like that, see how it doesn't roll now? That's a problem, which means you're too tight on the little shaft. So you just gotta loosen it up. So now that's in there, the unit's in there. Now it fits into this. It just sort of shoehorns into the bottom. This one has a broken pin, so it doesn't actually fit. There's a busted pin right there. I'm gonna have to remove it or punch it out. There's the locating pins right there, and there's one broke off here from the other unit. I'm gonna try to see if I can push it out. Just like that. So now take the bottom, I put it in there. These two little teat, like K9 teat, they hold this harness back so it doesn't affect the drum. And then you just sort of shoehorn it in there like that. You're gonna have, you wanna make sure that the harness is out of the way. And this may not even fit together because it's off of another one. Actually, it does. The holes do line up. So now this is in there. You're gonna take two little screws. I think there are two rusty ones. They go right there. Another one right there. Kind of just screw that flush. So there's the two outer screws, and then these two like pan heads, don't mess with them. Those actually hold in the trip meter, the 3-digit trip piece in there. That's what keeps it to the plate. The main odometer does not come off of the plate. It's actually casted as part of the plate. Anyway, so now we have the odometer piece in there, and now we have the little hub right there for the drum to sit on. So now we're on this. Now I turned it too many times. Remember the little lenses. Actually, you should just put those aside. I'm gonna do that. Not gonna put those in until I try to put it back together. So there's all those. Getting tangled up here. So now we're gonna set the drum in there. I want to set this guy, point this in here. So basically you want to make sure your hands are clean. You don't want to get your little drum dirty, but the way it's in there, so now you got to make sure it hits that stop, right? This orange and black needs to be almost towards the top. That's how it's oriented. And then you sort of shoehorn it in there like that. Make sure your little spring doesn't pop out. And then you just set it in there. Or if you're pulling it out, you pull it out the other way. You put this on the flat spot right there. That's where the screw goes to hold it down. And it's a adjustment back and forth. So now comes the tricky part. Now you need to get the drum onto, the pins into their little rotating sockets. So that's a little trickier. It's trial and error. So basically you move this bracket all the way up, and then you just start guessing in there until you think you hit it. And when you hit it, because this thing ain't gonna move sideways, when it feels like it's inside that hub, like it won't move anymore. And you can't see in there whatsoever. This bracket needs to go all the way up that way, this one here. And then you just kind of play with it until you hit that piece. And it's not easy. It takes a few tries. You can also tell the gap here and there if you're in the center or not. Okay, you see that right there? I just hit it. There's my stop. I feel the stop. So now I'm gonna bring this bracket back downwards. Because you want to make sure this upper side, the pin is into the socket also. Now I'm going to take the screw that goes in there, one of these. So that's how that looks right there. You see how that screws in the slide? And now you're going to make sure this thing rotates freely, just like that. And then you're going to work this bracket down. Made it too tight. Kind of wiggle that bracket down. And you can kind of mess with the play. Okay, that's too much play. So I'm going to bring this bracket down even more. So this is out of a different unit. That's as far as it goes down. I'm going to tighten it. It's a little more slapped than I would like, but the other one was much better, the one I put together. But here's basically the effect it's going to need to have. It needs to move freely and bounce back up against the stop, just like that. If your thing is binding in any way, it's not going to tell the right speed. But if you get it to this, that looks good. So now that is the hardest part of this, getting this thing back together. So remember the fragile things. The drum and all your little lenses for the lights, which I obviously messed up. So over the drum goes this piece. It's got 3 screws, and you set it in there just like yay. Now one of them goes underneath the fuel gauge, and that's the only reason you have to dislodge the fuel gauge. You don't have to get it all the way out, but you got to get to that little screw down there. And also the little window, or the actual bezel for the 3 lights, that thing, this has to come out so you can get to that screw right there. I'm going to put a couple screws in there. They're little tiny guys with a tiny little screwdriver. Use the little tweezers just like that. All right, there's one little screw just like that right there. Gonna put the second one in there, and you got to take your time. It's, you know, I've done it a few times now, and I've dropped the screw in there, and you just gotta shake it out. And that's why I recommend you just take the little lenses out and keep them out of the way till you're ready to put them back. Just like that. Tighten them up. All right, now we're ready for the lenses. Make sure you got your blinker ones in. Make sure you got your blinker indicator plastic pieces on top of the mesh. They're the little clear ones that actually have the little pointers, just like that. We have the red lens. We have the blue lens. We have a mesh. We have a mesh all over the missing lens, and that one. After that, you put the cover over those that actually holds them in. Then you get 2 short screws. You kind of need a lot of patience. There's just no winning sometimes. Gonna have to reset that one. There, I got it started. So you snug those up. So you got the lights back in there. After that, once this drum is in, make sure it still spins freely. So now after that, after you have this thing moving freely, you got to put in the backsplash thing that tells you, actually it's not a backsplash, it's the forefront with the numbers. So that fits in there. It's got 3 places to hook it, 1 there and 2 on top. It just fits in there like that. Actually, there's 1 screw under there, and I'm not gonna put it in because I'm not taking this thing out again. So before you put your lights on, make sure you put this on. I forgot to do it. I'm running out of screws anyway. All right, I just put the 2 top ones in right here. There's one that goes underneath here. The 3rd one's under this, so you got to make sure. If you're just taking this out, you have to take out the light piece. Got to make sure your little blinker things are in. I lost one somewhere here on the bench. Not gonna worry about it. Anyway, this thing's got the 4 screws. Make sure your blinker little indicator is on there, and then you put another screw, Anyway, there's 4 screws on this guy once you got the number plate in. Then you put the face for the odometer. That's basically a got the plastic piece goes in there, the window, and then your little little divider. Just another 1 screw right there. Anyway, you want to make sure your thing lines up, and that's pretty much it from the front. Like, you got all the guts in there now. Now comes this part, which is the bezel with the bezel with the glass. And something about the buttons, the actual rotating knobs for the dimmer and the reset, they fit into the front. So don't try to pull them out because you're gonna break stuff. And they have a C clip like that, and they fit on the thing. So you basically, first you need a felt. That's the first piece that goes on there is a piece of felt. I don't have it. The one I had is broken. I stole one off of this, but I can I guess I can use this one. You can kind of see how it'll work. Pop the C clip, got a bunch of stuff on there. So you see the felt piece. So now the felt piece will go, it'll go in through here, and then you got a bunch of washers. You have a flat washer, you have like a Woblong spring washer, and another flat washer over that, or 2. And then you put the C clip over that. You can stack washers to put the right amount of tension on it. Then you just simply, you know, put the C clip on there like that, and there's the knob. It's part of it. So then when you put this on, I'm actually gonna put these in there too while I'm at it. And then this goes over it. And now this part is crimped, so you got to line up the buttons to turn. So here, this is the tricky part, because the bezel is actually crimped onto the body. And the way you put it on, you just kind of gently work it. Gonna try to show that. You start on one end and you just hook it, and then you just start working your way around like that. And same way of getting it off, you just start on the corners and the middle a little bit and just kind of work it. Just seat it on there and work your way around. Stupid cable. You know, just like that. You don't want to force it because you don't want to damage the bezel. That's that, and I just keep working it around until you pretty much get the whole thing on there. And just kind of massage it on there. And that's it. You know, here it is. It's back together. On the other side, you got 2 things. That this one is that holds all the light bulbs. So while I'm in here, I'm gonna define it. I'm gonna define the bulbs. Okay, you got left. Hold on. Right blinker, left blinker bulb. This is the instrument light, instrument light, generator light, start valve light, high beam light, and the bottom one is another instrument light. Same thing over here. This one is the instrument light down at the bottom. This is the gas tank light, the low gas light, and this is the actual gas gauge. So that has to be a little dislodged for you to get all those plates out, and it just takes really one screw here. So I'm gonna put one in there just real quick, just to sort of hold it like that. Then over here you got the rheostat. You can cut the wires or unsolder them, and then over here that lines up with the button. So your potentiometer or rheostat or whatever the hell you want to call it. Anyway, the other camera died. I'm gonna finish it with this one. Once you plug that in, this actually goes to the outside. Your oil pressure thing fits right there. So you kind of just shoehorn it in there. Like that. So this goes first. So this just slides in there. Like that. You tighten that screw. Then your rheostat goes back in there. You got to line it up with the knob. Then once that's in there, you got these two long screws. Actually, this thing needs to bend, I think, this way, like that, or goes around. I think it goes around in this direction. It goes under it like that, and then this covers it. Get another screw in there like that. Don't forget your two screws on the oil pressure. Those are like that. It's the back of the oil pressure gauge. There's one more goes right there. I'm not gonna mess with it. My batteries are dying on the GoPros. So anyway, that's what it looks like. This is the engine temp, which that part's actually in the car. So when you remove this, the engine temperature gauge comes out of the cluster and stays in the car. That's a whole nother video. There's plenty of those on how to remove these. But anyway, that's how it goes together. Moral to this story, watch the fragile parts. And those are the drum, the spring on top of the drum with the bracket. That's very fragile. And the other pieces are the little lenses, the little colored lenses, and the plastic pieces can be brittle. But that's how it comes together. And there it is. While I'm here, I want to show you the pinout. This is looking at the connector with the pins facing you. This is the wire side. The cable comes in over here. I don't have a pencil. So the wires come in from the top side, you know, and they go like that. So this is with the pins facing you, okay? On this side you got the gas light, gauge, ground. This is cluster ground. This is your instrument panel lights for nighttime. There is no pin here. This one is unpopulated. On the other side you have left blinker, start valve light, right blinker, the blue high beam, and generator light. This is the generator. This either one is either or. This is one prong to the bulb, and this is the other one. So one is plus and one's minus. But regardless, it's hot and return. There's no polarity. It's a light bulb. Also, another thing to note while I'm on the light bulbs, on this cluster, the nipple on the bulb is the negative. Like on a flashlight, it would be a positive. But the way this panel is wired, they put the negative on the nipple, and the control wire is on the ring, on the actual chassis of the bulb. So if you drop it in there, that ring is positive. The actual ring is on a plastic. It's isolated from chassis. So that's positive. And then the negative, the ground, flows through this to the nipple. Same thing in here. The ground, if you see it, you got 1, 2, 3, and 1 over. This is the ground. They're common ground, and they touch the nipple on the bulb. This one right here is by itself with this little wire. That is the return for the generator light. And that's about it. I'm going to cut this short, but this was just about the panel. I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.